Okay, so taking the theme of dukkha, it's that sense of unsatisfactoriness, stress, the difficulty, that is a part of everything. Even trying to present the Dhamma, we get our share of dukkha. We weren't able to do the last Friday live stream. Problems with the technology, and we weren't able to start on time tonight. Problems with the technology, different problems, which is, how do you say, like it's just different forms of dukkha. So that's what human existence is like that. It's this, there's always some kind of difficulty, some kind of problem, some kind of limitation, and but then there's also how do we deal with it? How do we meet it? Because we can meet it with irritation, frustration, get upset about it. Doesn't really change anything, just makes you more miserable. Or you can personalize it, make it a whole sort of personal story. Here we are at Pacific Hermitage, trying to get it together, and we still haven't got it together yet. And we can make a whole sort of story about it, and make it or it's sort of like the remember one time where we were early days of Abhayagiri, and one of the monks, we had limited space then, and the sewing room was in the little house, and little house, I mean, it was little, and just 2 tiny bedrooms with a bit of a front room and a kitchen, and one of the monks was sewing in the bedroom, and you hear this groans of frustration, and finally this kind of, this sewing machine is out to get me. And it couldn't feel like that, it's sort of, but it's it's personalizing it, and so that and the same, like this technology is out to get me, but that's just making a story, and we have to be alert to the reality of what is, and we have this opportunity to establish a sense of clarity, of, as in the instruction that I gave, the meditation instruction, coming back to the quality of knowing. Something can be difficult, and we can know it. Everything can work well, it can go smooth, and we can just know it, and be with that awareness. So it's an opportunity for recognizing what our options are, and give ourselves the options of well-being and ease. It's like in the meditation instruction I gave about that sort of just bringing the mind together, one pointing. Another word for that one pointing of the mind is unification, unifying the mind, bringing it together, gathering it together. And this past week, and during a meditation I had, when I was sitting in meditation, it came out of memory of a phrase, and I think it's probably, say, like a commentarial statement, but it was in Thai. Sometimes I still think in Thai. So, but it was that say, like, right meditation, right concentration, samma samadhi, is unification of the mind with nibbana as its object or as its mood. And of course you think like that, oh, okay, unification of mind with nibbana as its object. It's kind of hopeless. I mean, in the sense of, oh, that's just too far away. It's just too idealized. I could never do that. But it's helpful to start to reflect on it in terms of experience. Okay, unification, one point, as that sense of gathering the mind together, and holding it within a point that is inclusive. It's not exclusive. It's not excluding. It's not pushing away. And then the most frequently, say, the way that the Buddha defined nibbana most frequently in his teachings was nibbana as an ending of dukkha, ending of suffering, ending of dissatisfaction, ending of discontent, a cessation. Or another way, another very frequent way, is an ending of defilement, ending of greed, hatred, delusion. So if you think in terms of gathering the mind together in a way where there is an absence, or at least a diminishing of suffering, bringing the mind together in a place of well-being, in a place of just, rather than focusing on all the problems, all the difficulties, all the limitations, all the things that are wrong, it's sort of like, oh, here is an opportunity to pay attention to what is right, what is comfortable, what is easeful, what is spacious and peaceful, and to gather the mind together, and that composing the mind around that feeling. And similarly, in that sense of, okay, unification with the, say, nirvana as the object, in terms of freedom from greed, hatred, delusion. Okay, well, not attending to, not getting caught up in, not entangling oneself with one's moods of desire and irritation and confusion and doubts, and just letting that cease, letting it settle, letting it fall away. And that's okay. That's a great definition of right meditation, right concentration. Just allowing the mind to have that as its mood, or as its subject, what it tends to focus. Because when we say object, it's sort of out there, but really the word that is used is sort of in Thai it's aroma, and it means like mood or the feeling of something. So that having the ending of suffering as a feeling that we attend to, and just giving that more attention, because we do tend to the mind gravitates to, so what's going wrong, what's problematic, what is there I go again doing this, and it's it's kind of, it's really just a bad habit. And one realizes that, okay, yeah, I can direct attention else, I can gather attention in a way that is settled, is focusing on qualities of well-being, qualities of ease, qualities of peace. And this is something that is really, because we do need to learn how to use the thinking mind. We have to learn, because sometimes, again, that was when this past Sunday we were at the Portland Friends of the Dhamma, and one of the questions, it was like a day-long, well, half day of meditation, and gave the opportunity for questions. And it was a very common question, with the assumption that in order to meditate properly, you've got to stop thinking. And that's really not the case at all. We have to learn how to think skillfully. We have to learn how to direct our thoughts in a way that are really helpful to us, and that, because you think of the say the Eightfold Path of practice that the Buddha laid out, the second factor of the path is right intention, samma sankappa, but it's also it can be just as easily translated as right thought. So then it's thoughts of relinquishment, thoughts of relinquishment, thoughts of release, thoughts of generosity, nekamma, and it's kind of like thoughts of generosity, thoughts that go against the habit of greed, of desire. Thoughts of non-ill will, which is thoughts of loving kindness. Ill will is your opposite, and it's interesting. I mean, the Buddha is he's quite precise in his way of defining things, because rather than saying you've got to always think thoughts of loving kindness, he says, if you could just not get caught up in ill will, that's the basis, that's the foundation. Or to not get caught by thoughts of harming, and it's say like its positive connotation is thoughts of compassion, but it's more like we can recognize those directing attention to the aspect and realize, okay, I can direct attention in this skillful way that is focused on qualities of loving kindness and compassion, of generosity, and those are skillful use of thought. Another reflection is that there's a revered commentarial text in the Theravada tradition called the Visuddhimagga Path to Purification, and in that it brings together a lot of the teachings and sets it out as a handbook, but it also talks about or brings together where the Buddha taught about different meditations, and then altogether there's this compilation. There's like 40 different kinds of meditation, and 10 of them are recollections. They're like that one uses a direct recollection, a thought process. You bring up the thought to remind oneself of the Buddha, reminding oneself of the Dhamma or of teachings in various ways, and in the same way, just the thoughts of the Buddha in whatever way that helps the mind to establish itself in something wholesome and something skillful. Thoughts of the Sangha, thoughts of recollections of generosity, recollections of virtue, recollections of death, recollections of the body, recollections of devas, recollections of, say, heavenly beings, recollections of just mindfulness of breathing, of the breath, recollections of peace, which is, and it's particularly that peace of nirvana, that there is a possibility, there is a goal of peace, and we all recognize its value. We all want to be peaceful in some way, and we don't really ever set a conscious intention in our mind or a conscious kind of motivation of how can I increase my agitation, confusion, and miserableness? I mean, it's more, no, how can I be more peaceful? How can I be more settled? How can I be more steady? How can I be more centered? And that's making it conscious is really important. And then directing thought in a skillful way. So that recollection of learning how to, rather than trying to, and again, it comes up with that sense of say, the point that includes rather is something that is settling and peaceful rather than a point that excludes. Trying to be one-pointed when we're trying to exclude, push away, trying to get rid of, is not very easeful. But when our thoughts can be directed, and they can be towards themes that are very settling, very uplifting, encouraging to us, energizing, or settling and composing. Another image that comes to mind is Ajahn Chah giving he said, like in meditation, we're not trying to make everything absolutely still or immovable. We're just trying to know things within the boundary of that awareness and clarity. And he said and he gave an image that, of course, he's a villager, grew up in kind of as a farm boy, and it's a rural environment. But one of the things that they do in Thailand is they've got these very like bamboo kind of basket, but they're very loosely woven, so the holes are like yay big. And it's about, oftentimes it's about this big, it's about that size, so kind of big. And you throw a bit of rice, your chickens go to get it, and you plunk that over top, and your chickens sort of run around and hang out in that little basket, that little cage, and that's their boundary. And you know where they are, and you don't need to kind of put a peg in the ground and try to tie their leg to it or something so they don't move. They're not going anywhere. So in the same way, we do that with our awareness, with our knowing, with our thoughts of just skillful, wholesome thoughts of reflection, thoughts of what is useful, what's beneficial, what is actually comfortable and easeful, what is for the relinquishing of suffering, so that we can be thinking, reflecting within that boundary, and it becomes really interesting, and that is a unification of mind. It's unified with what is wholesome, what is skillful, and intrinsic to that quality of the wholesome, the skillful, there is a settled quality. In the way that the Buddha talks about it, there's a word that he uses called kusala and akusala. And there's not really a good translation in English, because we tend to sort of, it's good or bad, it's right or wrong. But in the scriptural language, this kusala, akusala is what is wholesome, unwholesome, skillful, unskillful, beneficial, unbeneficial, and intrinsic to those, say, the beneficial, the wholesome, the skillful, is that it is clear, it is settled, it is steady. And that's, as our mind revolves around the kusala, around the skillful, the mind settles, it's happy. There's a sense of well-being, and it's happy to be with its object. And so that's a different quality than trying to force the mind onto an object, eliminate all thought. One, you just can't do it. So, but and you're not a happy camper trying to do it. So just directing the attention to what is skillful, lifting up. I would say that unification of mind with nirvana as its object, and that settling of the mind with an ending of stress as its mood, as its feeling. And one can allow that to keep settling, keep returning to that. And we can use the breath, we can use the body as a feeling to gather around, but the actual tone of it is that tone of what is peaceful, what is settled, what is clear, what is steady. And that's, the ending of discontent, dissatisfaction. And getting a feel for that, experimenting with it, and not setting up nibbana as something too exalted or too... the Buddha was an extraordinarily practical person. And in reality, the Buddha, the word nibbana, in the time of the Buddha, he used it as an illustration of his goal. And what it literally meant was to cool. So that, and one of the ways that it would be used is if you were cooking a pot of rice that was boiling, you took it off the fire, you set it off to the side to nibbana, to cool. So it's not, something out in some exalted realm. This is, the Buddha is extraordinarily practical, and to be able to bring our practice to that which is really practical also. So those are some reflections this evening, and I'll open it up for questions. Yes, Shelley.
Two questions. The first question, did you enjoy Shamina's cookies from Canada?
They were enjoyable. It was delightful that somebody sort of made the effort to do something, send it, and they actually made it in one piece, or at least what you offered was the ones that were in one piece.
And second, trying to answer my own question in a way. What came up in my sitting was, you referred to one course tomato, it's like this.
Yeah.
But it seemed to me as soon as so you can't multitask, it turns out. So I could only say it's like this, but it's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
The thought has already happened as I am aware of it.
Yep.
And then of course is that, so what? Is that kusala or not kusala, akusala? And to follow your point, that doesn't matter. And then part of that is what am I bringing up in my what's coming up in my meditation?
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's something just like that like,
Yep.
like a question like that comes up in my mind.
Yep.
And I mean, it keeps me interested, but I don't know if that's, in the long run, useful. I mean, it is for me, but maybe.
Well, I mean, one of the things is coming back to the affect, in the sense of if the affect that arises is one of just like that. Okay, it's like this, but then you start doubting. Well, is it really like this? What I say? So maybe it isn't. Maybe or I missed it. It was like this before. Now it's So I mean that's it's kind of leading to agitation. So it's like you're hopefully any tools that we give are not sort of ultimate teachings in and of themselves. They're hopefully tools that help us to return or to establish a place of clarity, of ease, of release or relinquishment. That freedom from dukkha, freedom from kind of greed, hatred, delusion, freedom from the kind of the stains of the mind. So that coming back, and we know that, because when we bring up a quality of generosity or loving kindness or compassion, there is a sense of ease and spaciousness. There's a sense of well-being that is intrinsic. So that it's using those tools, whatever they are, in order to help facilitate that composing of the heart in a way that is very easeful and clear. And as that establishes itself more and more, one gains some confidence in that. Okay?
So the confidence that I gain sitting on the cushion,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of practice over and over, getting to that ease. So when I'm out in daily life, so like goodwill. If I practice goodwill on the cushion enough,
Yep.
that'll be my go-to when I'm interacting with somebody at the beach.
Yep. Hopefully.
No matter what's going on.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe they'd be well.
Yeah, because I mean, you start realizing that you do have options. So it's practicing those skillful options in, and that's why we call it practice. Because we gain some confidence in that, or gain some skill in that, and then it becomes, at times when there are some challenge or some difficulty, and then we realize, okay, I've got options here. I can I don't have to just follow a habit of either irritation or confusion, or I can direct attention elsewhere. Okay. Yeah.
Questions here?
Yeah.
John, to your point on personalizing hard times, it's also easy to do that in uplifting times. Do you have advice for keeping good fortune and joy in the same, not self-perspective?
Well, I mean, it's just yeah, we have to apply that across the board. It's like, because it's not, because it's true. I mean, we can, things go well, everything's right, and we personalize it or make it into a identity of what, I'm so special, or everything's great because of my wonderfulness. And that's a problem. You get really you lose a lot of friends that way. But it's a sense of whatever it is. The Dhamma takes us beyond that, and there's an idiom that Ajahn Chah used, and I mean, he was really skillful at playing with language and in the Thai language, but his saying that, like, the Dhamma is outside of good beyond bad, or outside of bad beyond good, outside of the skillful beyond the unskillful, outside of the cause beyond effect. I mean, it's sort of all the way that we measure the world, outside of success beyond failure, outside, blame beyond praise. I mean, it's sort of all of the things that we measure the world by. The Dhamma takes one beyond that all the time. So that sense of personalizing even the successes or the good things, just being able to see it. Again, it's like this, and one uses it skillfully. One enjoys it while it's there, and how do we bring benefit through that? But yeah, just not turning it into a personal identity that we carry around and make a burden out of it. So it's both the difficulties as well as the successes and whatnot. Yeah, Colleen.
When you were speaking about nirvana being sort of the absence of suffering, can you speak to having compassion and not suffering when others are suffering?
Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the things is I mean, there is compassion from a Buddhist perspective, and in its, say, refined form, is a divine abiding, and so that one is yeah, one, and in order for it to fully mature, one has to not be entangled in the, like feeling pity for somebody or feeling shaken and suffering because of others' suffering is a limitation on compassion. So that, and the one of the ways that one can be, say, developing that or attending to it is recognizing that if I am suffering because of that, that limits my ability to be compassionate. And so it's like, which doesn't mean one doesn't feel anything, but it's right, how do I, because compassion always needs wisdom as a support. It needs that clear seeing and a pure intention, like that sense of. But part of compassion, requires empathy to be able to feel. So I mean, it's a bit of a. I mean, oftentimes there are paradoxes in so that one, like another word that's used as a synonym for compassion in Buddhism is it's called anukampa, which means to tremble with. So it's like that similar to empathy, to feel with, but it's that feeling with wisdom as a basis as well, where one's seeing, okay, in order to be really attuned to somebody's situation and their difficulty, I need to rise above my own initial response to be overwhelmed or to be hurt by or to be upset by, and that it helps. That compassion has more of an avenue of moving into action that is really beneficial, or at least to be able to hold the person or the situation without being shaken by it.
That's where equanimity comes in.
That's where equanimity comes in, and that's also in a sense of, especially from a Buddhist perspective. Those four Brahma Viharas are really not separate. I mean, they're different flavors of an attunement. They're different flavors of mature emotion. So loving kindness, compassion, joy at the, say, well-being and success of others, and equanimity, and an ability to be kind of steady and clear within a situation. Okay.
What practices help to cultivate faith and resolve?
Okay, so what practices help to cultivate faith and resolve? Well, I mean, I think one of the I would say everything. I mean, in the sense that that wherever you can pick up the practice is where it is an occasion for gaining some confidence, some faith in the teaching, to gain some experience and a sense of resolve, so that as one continues to pick up the practice in whatever way, shape, or form, it all kind of revolves around those fundamental qualities of faith, of confidence, and of a sense of resolve or effort, or an ability to be a bit determined, because one starts seeing the results. It's a recognizing because again, whatever practice that we pick up in terms of Eightfold Path, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, or as I say, like those 10 recollections, or mindfulness of breathing. I mean, everything is interrelated. Everything is tied together. It's like my robe, if I found a loose thread and started pulling on it, it's the whole robe is a whole bunch of loose threads come together in a certain pattern. So the Buddha's teaching is very similar. It all works together, and the more one sort of sees how it really does kind of tie together, work together, support each other, then there's an increase of confidence and resolve that comes up. This experience. Okay. That's it for the questions?
There's a few comments that I could read out if people don't have any other questions.
Okay.
Reflections on what you said this evening already.
Oh, okay.
Ajahn, your reflection on unification, cooling, settling, peace, nirvana, touched a deep place in my heart. Much gratitude.
Okay.
And another one. The Dhamma is outside success, beyond failure. Great way to frame that. Thank you, Paul.
Ajahn Chah. Back to the source. Yeah. And if we said that to Ajahn Chah, he'd say, "It's not me, it's the Buddha." Okay, so we can wrap it up for the evening. Great to see everybody.